Hi everyone, this is Hana. January 7th, 2026, Minneapolis, Minnesota, a city on the other side of the globe from Korea. The city of George Floyd, who screamed, "I can't breathe" to the world 6 years ago. There, in a peaceful residential neighborhood, red blood has once again been scattered over the white snow. The owner of that blood was Lene Nicole Good, a mother of 3 children, a poet, and an ordinary American citizen who spent her life caring for her neighbors. She took her last breath after being shot by an agent of her own country's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. In those short moments, as she bled out and lost her grip on life, a neighbor who was a physician witnessed the scene and screamed, "I'm a physician, at least let me check her purse." But the public power of the world's strongest nation pointed a gun at him and replied, "I don't care." The public power of 2020, which pressed its knee on a citizen pleading, "I can't breathe," has now become a monster in 2026 that points a gun and mutters, "I don't care." This short, cruel sentence acts as an epitaph, showing how far America, once called the model of democracy, has fallen today. It is a declaration that power is above life, and the ruler's law and order is above the dignity of human being. Witnessing this chilling scene, I skipped over 46 years of time and recalled the coldest winter my own country, South Korea, ever endured, Gwangju, in May 1980. It is no coincidence that this incident happened in Minneapolis. Minneapolis, where Lene Good was murdered, is traditionally a fortress of progressivism with strong democratic supporters. It is the heart that triggered the global Black Lives Matter movements after George Floyd was killed by a white police officer in 2020. To President Donald Trump and the MAGA forces, this place is a thorn in their side. To them, Minneapolis is a holy land of leftist riots and a target for political revenge, a place to set an example of their law and order. The fuse was lit a few days ago, causing a butterfly effect that turned into a massive typhoon. A conservative YouTuber exposed corruption in the Somali immigrant community in Minnesota, forcing Governor Tim Walz to give up his bid for a third term. The Trump administration did not miss this crack in the Democratic stronghold. Under the pretext of rooting out illegal Somali immigrants, they deployed 2,000 heavily armed ICE agents into Minneapolis neighborhoods and schools, acting like an occupying army. The justification was immigration control, but the reality was a political war to suppress opposition strongholds with force. This happened just 24 hours before Lene Good was shot. Lene Good was a civilian trapped in the middle of that battlefield. She was neither an immigrant, not a criminal, but she was sacrificed in a vortex of fear created by state power. If a police officer's knee pressed on a citizen's neck in 2020, a federal agent's bullet pierced a citizen's heart in 2026. This is not just excessive force, it is the prelude to a civil war waged by the state against its own people for political ends. The response from the US government was even more shocking. President Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Chris Noem labeled this innocent citizen a professional agitator and a domestic terrorist. Elon Musk used his platform X to spread false information to the world, claiming she tried to run the agent over. Why frame a white female citizen with such a terrible label? To justify the murder. The moment she is branded a terrorist, she transforms from a citizen to be protected into an enemy to be eliminated. Watching people defend ISIS self-defense and echo Trump's opinion, I felt a horror, as if a scene from the movie Civil War, released in 2024, had jumped into reality. In the movie, an armed militia points a gun and asks, "What kind of American are you?" To them, being a fellow US citizen didn't matter. There were only real Americans who fit their ideology and fake Americans to be removed. This cruel question, once fiction, became the reality Linegood faced in 2026. The moment she fell out of favor with power, she was classified as the wrong kind of American and killed. The dystopia shown in the movie is no longer on the screen. For me, as a Korean, this scene evokes a terrible sense of déjà vu, because the exact same thing happened in Gwangju, Korea, in May 1980. The military dictatorship that seized the power through a coup isolated the citizens of Gwangju who demanded democracy. They controlled the media and branded them as rioters and communists instigated by North Korea, killing their own people and blaming the victims. In the end, thousands of innocent citizens were killed, injured, or went missing. And after that, Korea had to endure another 17 years of military dictatorship. The word terrorist in 2026 Minneapolis is a perfect synonym for rioter in 1980 Gwangju. This is the universal way fascism operates. The FBI warned as early as 2006 that white supremacist groups are infiltrating law enforcement. 20 years later, that warning has materialized as ICE agents mocking immigrants in secret chat groups, sharing Nazi symbol, and finally as the face of a monster shooting a citizen and saying, "I don't care." This chilling scene forcibly summons the memories of Gwangju. The paratroopers deployed to Gwangju were not born devils, but the military starved them for days and brainwashed them. Those in front of you are not citizens, but communists who killed your comrades. Power blinded their eyes and ears, injected fuel called hate, and remodeled ordinary young men into killing machines. Colonel Lockjaw from the recent award-winning film One Battle After Another symbolized this system. He believes that instilling blind hostility towards the enemy is a soldier's virtue. To him, war is not about protecting people, but about erasing enemies. Behind the ICE agent in 2026 and the martial law troops in 1980, Colonel Lockjaw always stands. Sometimes in the name of national security, sometimes law and order, he whispered to the soldiers, "They are not human. Shoot." Ultimately, one agent fired a bullet that killed Linegood, but what pulled the trigger was the state system that neglected and encouraged structural hate. We must be angry at this tragedy because the mechanism of manufactured hate that stained Gwangju with blood 46 years ago is still operating right now all over the world. But history is not recorded by violence alone. When power tries to cover the truth with hate, there were those who risked their lives to record it. In the movie A Taxi Driver, based on the true story of the 1980 Gwangju Democratization movement, Gwangju is a completely isolated island. The military blocked the city and cut off communications. The outside world had no idea citizens were dying, and they had to die lonely death branded as rioters. The only hope was Wirgin Hinspeter, a blue-eyed witness who risked his life to enter Gwangju, and Kim Sa-bok, the taxi driver who drove him through a hail of bullets. The old film Kang they smuggled out broadcasted the truth to the world. These were not rioters, but bleeding humans. What about Minneapolis in 2026? Instead of Hinspetter's old camera, we have countless smartphones of citizens. If the dictator of 1980 covered the truth by blocking information, the ruler of 2026 pollutes the truth by screaming fake news, even in front of clear video evidence. But just as the taxi driver swallowed his rage and held the steering wheel, citizens around the world are holding their phones tight, pressing the share button, and carrying the truth. If video records testifies to the event, literature testifies to the depth of that pain. Kang, the first Korean to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2024, wrote Human Acts. Original title in Korean is The Boy is Coming, a novel about the tragedy of Gwangju. A boy who fell before the military's gun asks, "Is it true that human beings are fundamentally cruel?" When Kang won the Nobel Prize, the conservative government and far-right forces in Korea tried to insert her and damage the truth of Gwangju instead of celebrating. Why were they so afraid of a piece of literature? Because that novel testified to the naked face of state violence too painfully and too vividly. Dictators try to erase the records, but literature and the memory of awakened citizens preserve that pain forever. Renee Good's death might be recorded as terror in Trump's social media, but in the hearts of global citizens who witness the truth, it will remain forever as a sacrifice by state violence. There is a story I really want to tell Democrats around the world. Even in desperate situation, hope exists. And Korea is the country that most recently proved that hope. On the night of December 3rd, 2024, then President Yoon Suk-yeol declared emergency martial law for the first time in 45 years since 1979. Troops tried to enter Seoul, and the National Assembly was surrounded by armed soldiers and police. It felt like the nightmare of Gwangju was returning to all of us. At the moment, the final scene of the movie 12/12 The Day, Korean title Spring in Seoul, watched by over 10 million Koreans, flashed through our minds. The movie depicts the 1979 military coup and ends with the rebels toasting their victory. Facing the shameless historical fact that a successful coup cannot be punished, the audience tasted rage and deep despair. On the night martial law was declared, we were terrified that the movie's terrible bad ending might repeat in reality. But Korea in 2024 was different from 1980. Immediately after the declaration, despite the freezing winter weather, tens of thousands of citizens ran out onto the street in short sleeves, slippers, and even pajamas. They blocked the soldiers with the guns with their bare bodies. They helped lawmakers climb over the wall of the National Assembly and stood in front of armored vehicle. Because the pain of 1980 Gwangju and the rage we felt watching the movie 12/12 The Day were deeply engraved in our DNA. The desperate vow, we will not defeat it like back then. We will not let them steal democracy again, overcame the fear. We had to create a different ending from the movie in reality. In the end, by the power of the citizens, the National Assembly voted to lift martial law in just 4 hours. But that 4-hour victory was not the end. It was the beginning of a long, harsh winter. For the next 6 months, Korean citizens held a relay protest 24 hours a day without resting a single day. Instead of Molotov cocktails, we held K-pop light sticks in our hands. Those who couldn't join the protest prepaid at restaurants and cafes near the protest site for the demonstrators. Countless boxes of heat packs, blankets, and survival foil arrived endlessly. We protect each other when the government and public power abandoned us. And we made a solemn promise, no matter what happens, we will remain nonviolent. Miraculously, despite the month-long struggle involving millions of people, not a single person was injured or killed. The process was slow and suffocating. After countless failure, we finally impeached the president. And after more failures, we succeeded in arresting him. But due to the dirty tricks of the court and far-right forces, his arrest was cancelled and he was released once. It was a moment of despair. But we went back to the streets. We protested again and finally we put him back behind bars. The process was pure madness. We witnessed a terrifying deja vu of the US Capitol riot on January 6th. On January 19th, 2025, Korean far-right mobs stormed the Seoul Western District Court. Just like the mega rioters, they broke into the court building. Their goal was to hunt down the judge who issued the arrest warrant, screaming that they would execute the judge. Currently, he is on trial for countless charges, including insurrection, crimes of foreign aggression, abuse of power, and corruption. But the most terrifying truth was revealed later. To manufacture a pretext for declaring martial law, he had secretly sent drones to North Korea, trying to provoke a war multiple times. If North Korea had not been distracted by sending troops to the Russia-Ukraine war and had responded to his provocation, we might have faced a World War III started on the Korean Peninsula. We didn't just fight a dictator, we stopped a war. This was peaceful resolution won by citizens, rare in world history right now. We rewrote the tragic ending of the film 12/12 The Day into a happy ending with our own hands. The phrase, "I don't care," from Minneapolis makes us angry, reminding us of the scream, "I can't breathe," from 6 years ago. But our history speaks. When power says, "I don't care," and ordinary citizens hold each other's hands, shouting, "We remember," democracy is protected. Just as the world shouted Black Lives Matter when George Floyd pleaded for breath, we must now stand in solidarity for Lene Good, for everyone branded as a terrorist by power. America stands before the crisis of a civil war. The politics of hate and division are destroying the community. But I believe, just as the blood 1980 Gwangju birthed the victory of 2024 Seoul, the tragedy of Minneapolis today will awaken American citizens again. Power may come from the battle of gun, but justice eventually comes from the solidarity of awakened citizens. I earnestly hope that this truth, which Korea proved by enduring 45 years, becomes a small spark of hope for American citizens in deep sorrow, and for everyone facing a crisis of democracy around the world. We are connected. Your sorrow is my sorrow, and your struggle is my struggle. From Gwangju, Korea, to Minneapolis, and to the world. As Nobel Prize winner author Kang said, "The dead save the living, and the past saves the present." Thank you so much for listening to my story. If any part of my story resonate with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions about me or life in Korea, let me know in the comments down below. Welcome to Hana's Island. You're safe here now. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.